Welcome to Podlamania Podcast, your photography and video podcast, where we introduce you to some of the most amazing creatives from around the world. But welcome to episode 30, and today we're going to talk with British-based fashion and advertising photographer James Nader, whose endless list of clients and creative work span over a lengthy 25 years.
How you doing, Wayne? Nice to be here.
James, finally. That's a lot, man. Welcome to the show.
25 years, gosh.
For today,
Finally got it sorted. Well, it's great to be here anyway. Thanks for inviting me onto your show.
Thank you, my friend. I've been looking forward to this one. And here's another little note for Jake, because he'll probably listen to it when he goes out. So he's going to be a bit jealous because you are a Nikon shooter primarily, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I've been Nikon since film days, so it's quite a while. I did have a little stint with a Canon T90, which is a long time ago, but I just went back to Nikon. Yeah, no. I've never touched Canon, and it's nothing personal.
Yeah,
it's just business, as they say, and I just prefer it. Yeah.
You like what you like, don't you? You're used to what you're used to. Right. Okay, James, this is the first question we ask all our guests in every single show is coming your way right now, my friend. Right. So for our audience, James, how would you describe yourself and what you do?
Well, I suppose I come from a creative background. I come from a university style degree in photography stroke graphic design, and I'm more of a creative stroke avant-garde styled photographer, which is where I'm probably moving more towards now. Although I do a lot of commercial advertising work, It's probably how I feel about my work, like I suppose Peter Lindbergh or Merton Marcus. Yeah. They're sort of some great people.
Nice.
It's how I sort of see my work, although a little bit further down the ladder.
Well, it's just that maybe we're not on the same radar, mate. It doesn't mean our work's not as creative.
Bigger radars where they come from that we have.
That's it. No, it's nice. And it's nice that you speak of your work and you're interested in the work that way. Rather than just commercial banging it. You've already injected your passion into it by giving our listeners a bit of what sort of style you sort of aim for and what you like. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of really, really do love the fine art side of the photography, and I like it more so since COVID. I've sort of gone and searched through my database of images and what I do, and I sort of really, really enjoy that style more so. I'm going to be doing more of it, less client-based and more my-based.
Do you know you're not the first especially during COVID lockdown? I've seen a lot of people of our caliber and other top fashion photographers that have been in the industry 20, 30 years. I've seen them drop off from the fashion realms as well and concentrate more on the fine art world. It's something that seems to be a massive change in direction just across the whole industry, I feel. And not only because of COVID, I've seen this actually before COVID. So
no, I sort of agree with that. And I've sort of been one of these photographers, and I've sort of seen over the last 20 years, I've always been courted by fine art galleries and people who wanted to represent my work in galleries. I never really engaged with it that much until probably recently, when a gallery in Amsterdam, Goggeline Gallery, they sort of decided to take some of my work and actually sold a couple of pieces, which was really great. So, but they were putting them up to about 1.2 meters by 2 meters and putting it behind Diaset. And I sort of thought, somebody says, why don't you do more? So I looked at all my work and I just created a little bit of a fine art website to try and get that off the ground. But I'm sort of experimenting more and doing more of my creative stuff. I know creative stuff for me doesn't necessarily equate to, I suppose, clients necessarily at this stage, but it's more of where I come from, what I want to do. It's more about what I want to do now. That's it, really.
I'm kind of with you on that as well myself. I mean, I've pulled out from the fashion world quite a bit over the years. Beauty world is still there, quite prominent, but less and less commercial fashion, but like yourself, more fine art fashion, portraiture in that sort of style, more creative, without the boundaries of a boundaries of a client. It's quite nice.
So that's probably how we met, wasn't it? Off and on a few years, probably. Well, we met up, didn't we? Through one of the clients or contacts that we're working with a few years ago.
Yeah.
I watch your work, I see what you do, and I can see that you got quite a really good, strong beauty sort of fashion look.
So in your work, I mean, you do stills and moving images as well, and you also have your own media production company as well, don't you?
Yes. Yeah. So the media production company is based around some of my more commercial clients, and because I had an agency quite a few years ago, 10, 12, 15 years ago, I had an agency, employed about 17, and it was more of the new media age then, and I was the creative director. I sort of fell out of love with photography and went into more of a creative director role. But the media company is just the same version of that, but with today's technology. So it's more production based. Small production. It sounds grand, doesn't it? Production.
It does.
A grand production company is just a small group of people, light on their feet, producing great content for clients. And it's not a weekly thing. No, it's a monthly thing. But it sort of supplements in between what's going on. I sort of got the bug for video and a bit more of the production side of things a few years ago, and you can't always do everything yourself, and I just feel like sometimes you work very much on your own, and it's nice to work with some people. So
with that then, do you, when you're doing stills and video, I mean, video in terms of BTS and things, we know obviously you've got a guy on the camera, doing the video work while you're shooting the stills. But do you do the filming yourself, or do you just have your small team where you're shooting stills and you've got your film guy doing the video? It
kind of depends. I think if it's fashion based, then I tend to like to get behind the camera and direct. Behind the scenes is done by a production team. Clients bring their own in, or I bring my own in. I do work with a guy, if I'm going slightly higher end, he's got a red camera, so I bring him in to work with me. He's got all the gear. I mean, you can't buy all that kit in yourself and use it on occasion.
No.
So he's got all of the red kit. He's got all the Canon prime lenses. So he does that. When it comes down to some of my clients, I tend to like to direct somebody or direct and shoot. So, creative directors or thing. It just depends. Yeah. It just depends, really. But I do like that process. I like the idea of directing and guiding lighting, and I suppose it's like director of photography is probably what I would have liked to have been in the films, really.
Yeah, get you. Yeah, nice. Yeah, very nice. Now, I have to say, I've had a look at your websites recently as well, just sort of a refresh on those. And I've got to say, James, they're looking very polished, mate. They're looking very, very nice indeed, very crisp.
Oh, thanks for that. Well, don't pick me up on my main one, my portfolio website, which is the .com/.co.uk.
Right.
Because I haven't touched that for quite a while, but some of the other things I've been doing. Yeah, so I taught myself web design with WordPress and that, and part of my agency used to have 5 hand coders. So I picked up a lot of tips from the guys, SEO optimization. Page 1 of Google, I might add, for...
Got a question coming up about that later on in the feed.
Oh, sorry, I jumped the gun.
No, you're right. You haven't got the question, so don't worry about it. Yeah, and I was going to say that. I say websites as well, plural, because you do have more than one, don't you? For different reasons.
Unfortunately, yes. I do get chastised by people quite a bit saying, why don't you focus down? But I learned very early doors when I went back into photography about 12, 13 years ago that it's good to wear different hats for different occasions. And that came out of a conversation with an agent once. He said, well, James, what do you do on a weekend? Oh, I take pictures. Oh, yeah, okay. Well, what do you photograph? Well, I kind of like going out and doing landscapes, and the look of disgust on her face. I beg your pardon. So I like to go and take landscape. Well, why would you do that? Because I like to be in environments. Yeah, but you're a fashion photographer, or that's what you're telling me. Why don't you do it to practice and test your lighting? Well, maybe I need a break. I've got to have a hobby, and I'm very much driven by nature. So a lot of my pictures are driven by backgrounds and environments, which I really love to be in.
Or maybe landscapes is just my downtime, for Christ's sake. It's
just my downtime. Yeah, I thoroughly love landscapes, but I soon realised that it was not going to generate me an income because I was told it wouldn't. So there you go.
It is what it is, isn't it? It is what it is. But no, I mean, they're looking very nice. Obviously, we got your website links in the show notes, and obviously we'll get you to reel those off at the end of the show anyway.
Brilliant, yeah.
obviously sensitive subject at the moment. Obviously, due to lockdown, we've all taken a bit of a knockback in work and commissions and clients and doing anything really. But are you diving back into creative things again now? Are you starting to get those wheels in motion? I mean, I know you were on a shoot last week, hence why we couldn't record this session. But how did that go, by the way?
Well, excuse me. I'm part of the way through that. So early doors in my career, I became very much involved in composition work, creating lots of pictures, joining them together, compositing in Photoshop. And one of my pre-existing clients came back to me and just emailed a visual.
Yeah.
And I said, "What's this? Can you do it?" And it was just a thumbnail sketch. And I said, "Yeah, just elaborate a little bit." So that's currently a job I was shooting. I shot the model in the studio. And I'm doing the composite work. We did some behind-the-scenes shoots. It was in France, actually. We did some shots in France of the land. So not big budget, but interesting. So, But to answer your question, it has dropped a little bit. Obviously with COVID, there's, of course, agencies and agents and production companies aren't just going to have the budgets, because if you've got a 20 grand, 30 grand budget for something, you're going to go, hold on, I'm going to keep that for myself because I might need to exist a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I think diversifying and looking for different angles on what you're doing, which is something I've always done, dance around, like UFC, dancing around the ring. Got to do a little bit of that. And but I have seen a massive drop in not just business per se, but actually social media as well. Social media for me is really just taken it. It's tanked for some reason. I don't know why, but it has. But things have dropped off and things are not like they were. So, it's not just everybody else, it's me as well.
Yeah. And we said this earlier off air anyway, didn't we? We said, particularly the fashion world of photography has changed pre-lockdown anyway. It's been changing over the last couple of years. It's been taking quite a diverse turn and has not been as buoyant or as active or as lucrative as it once was. And we said that before, it's a very watered down market now and a very difficult one to successfully exist with a name, with your brand.
Well, I think you're 100% correct there. There's so many people out there shooting well.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Not shooting commercially for clients, but they're shooting for themselves. And to be honest, some of the work that you see out there is fantastic, phenomenal, retouched, fantastic, shot and lit well. So, and unless you've got an established track record with a client can just, in the old days, I'd phone up an agent, say, "Excuse me, Frank, for example.
Yeah.
Can I come and see you? Got some new pictures." "Yeah, James, how about Thursday, 4:00?
Yeah.
And you go, "Yeah, right, see you there." They sit down, flip. They get the creative directors and art directors and this director and that, and they flick through that. "Yeah, lovely composite cards." And then all of a sudden now it's like, "Can you send me an email? Can you put it? Can you text me?" I even had one agency that I dealt with for years, and it was a new person. I said, "I want to do a test with one of your models. Can you send us your booking?" I went, "No, I can't." "Well, we need to see your book." I said, "I'll tell you what, I'll go somewhere else. Thank you very much."
Really?
Yeah. It's just, and they knew me. I knew the boss of the company. One of the directors. "Yeah, but you're talking to me," is what the person said. So there's a lot of little jumped up gentry, gatekeepers, call them gatekeepers now.
And we know in the digital realms of social media, popularity is a big thing, and influencers were a big thing, and they still are, but they're not as prominent as they were. And I said this before in a podcast. I think I remember pitching for one job through an agency, and it actually, in the brief, it said you had to have to even qualify as a photographer. For the photographer to qualify, you had to have a minimum of 10,000 followers on Instagram.
It's just ridiculous.
It's just absolutely.
It makes their job easier.
Yeah.
It makes their job easier because they've got people to talk to. Instead of, an agency now needs you to have followers and Twitter followers and likes and stuff, because it makes their job easier to disseminate the pictures through your social media instead of getting off the backsides and doing it themselves.
Yeah. How about I just send you some of my work so you can see the quality rather than just 10,000 followers where, half of them may be bought.
Do the pictures? Well, why don't they do the pictures themselves? They, in fact, a lot of agencies are doing that. They're bringing their photographers in house, aren't they? A couple of fashion brands like Boohoo and Misguided, they employ their photographers and videographers now.
Yeah,
it's a cheaper option. It's a good option.
Yeah, that's right. Keep it all in house. Yeah, keep it under control. Yeah, that's it. Now, looking at your portfolio, I can see that you love to show your subjects in some form of act. And by that, I mean they're never too staged or too posed. So, your models are either they're walking or running, smoking, or their hands are doing things, and they're usually looking off camera and things. What is it that you're looking for in your shots?
I could answer that two ways, actually. I went through a period where the directing side of things directed the shot and controlled the shot too much.
Mm-hmm. As they do.
And that's really when you start to, for example, when I'm on location and I've got the client and there's one shot that we're working on and the background has to be featured and the lighting has to be right and I'm normally battling elements, that's when I direct. But when I don't do much studio work, but when I do, I try not to do that because it becomes too staged. But I do follow, well, my icon photographer has been, 1-2 photographer has been Peter Lindbergh.
Yeah.
And God bless him. But, that style of working in the streets and working in black and white and working freely is something that I've always wanted to do.
Nice.
Yeah. And I do it to a certain extent. I control it to a certain extent. But, I suppose that's why it's nice and free. Some of the pictures, they are like that. I just got to be careful that sometimes I get too direct tutorial, you know what I mean? So, but, yeah, I like the openness and the freeness of some styled shoots that I do.
Nice. And do you kind of naturally gravitate towards that sort of thing then?
Yeah, I think if somebody asked me what sort of style I like, I'd say I like the open freeness, but you don't see much of that in my work because the clients have been directing the style of work that I do. Somebody told me once years ago, it said, you create the highest end work for your website, but you might get BHS book you on that. And I go, why would they book me on? Naive, young. Why would they book me on that? Because they like to know that you can do that. And then you might be shooting e-com on a white background. And then you go, show me the money.
Yeah.
So you have the money, and all of a sudden you realise. And when I look at my portfolio sometimes, I look at it, it's all client-driven, that. So it makes me look like I'm a different type of photographer to probably what I really am. And so going back to the creative processes and, that sort of style that, some of these classic photographers do is really what I'm trying to get to now,
Yeah, and we know that, don't we, on set, that we said this before, it's very important that you shoot your personal work because a lot of creative directors and art directors will pick you up because of your personal work. Yes. More than your everyday commercial work. They do like to see a lot of personal work. So
I've got to own up and quite honestly say that I've not really done that very well over the years. I've always kept my stuff. I shoot it, like people do on their phones, shoot it and bank it. Yeah, I shoot it and bank it and stick it on. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, maybe 30, 40 terabytes of drives just full of images. And it's only now I'm going through and I'm thinking, that's why I did a journal. That's why I started this journal. So in lockdown, somebody who's got a stock library in London, Loop Images, named Paul Mortlock, he said to me, why don't you do a journal? I said, well, I can't be bothered with that. I haven't got enough time. Well, you've got an hour in the morning. Yeah, but I don't write. We'll learn. So I started to do it. And then I've gone through some of the pictures that I've shot and archived.
Yeah.
And I go, actually, that's a good shot. It's not fashion, but it's it shows that you're a photographer doing something else. And so I'm sort of releasing some of this stuff. But I've got this wall that I come up against and go, ooh, people don't want to see that. And I've got Jack, who's my assistant, goes, James, they want to see you, not what you put out all the time. Yeah. And I'm always asking, I'm always fighting these questions of whether it's the right thing to do. But yeah,
it's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's a tricky balance, isn't it? It's a tricky balance.
Shooting bank.
Yeah. Now we see a good number of in your work. We see a good number of male models. I see a mixture of both, but I see quite a lot of males in your work. Do you find men easier or harder to work with? And I only ask this because sometimes I feel that men's poses can be limited to a degree because they're always trying to show off the masculine side of a man, and obviously certain poses just really show that off. Do you have a different approach or a particular thing you're looking for when working with men compared to women?
Well, I think photographing men, and I sort of sway between times where it's women or it's photographing men, but the reason why I do that is because when you're trying to do something for yourself, it's easier to get a man to stand in the street in Manchester bring their clothes along that we've got from a men's shop, put a little bit of translucent powder and bang, off you go.
Yeah.
When it comes to a female model, it's where they're going to get changed. Where's the styling? How's the hair done? The makeup? And it just, for me, sometimes I get so frustrated with that sort of scenario that but I lived in Athens for a couple of years, and I assisted and worked in Athens, and I sort of developed this style because the men's shots over there were very. It was Max Magazine, which was very strong, and the crucifixes and the cars and the cigarettes and stuff. Yeah, and it just became quite easy to do that. I quite liked that style, and it didn't really migrate to the UK as well.
Yeah,
but no, I like to photograph. I like to photograph anything that looks interesting. So, but answer to your question, I think male has been easier over time.
Yeah, without a doubt, there's a greater percentage of the time there's a lot less to do with males, unless he's like Jake, of course, where he's got long flowing locks, that need attentive care.
It's fantastic. It's always got access to the ladies.
No, so that's the main reason. Then that's quite a simple explanation, really.
Social media, you see.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. If you photograph predominantly women, which I do, I mean, I've got to say 96% of all my work is female based. Get out there and try something else. Go and shoot some males and look for some different angles and different type of work.
Just final point on that. I think when I went into photography early doors, a lot of menwear companies came to me. So I used to be the regular photographer of Chiro Menswear, Horn Brothers, all this type of stuff. And so it just developed from that, really. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And you were saying earlier, you shoot predominantly location or natural light, don't you? Not sort of studio-based and studio lights.
I'll be honest with you, studio scares me. Although I can do it, it just scares me because I look at that plain background and go, oh my God, what am I going to do?
Oh, it's easy, Jay.
There's only so many ways you could put your lights and make it look interesting.
That's an easy one. It's called build a set.
Oh, no, I know. But, I'm quite lazy photographer. If you turn up in the environment and you just go... Actually, I quite like the challenge. Somebody said to me in one of my journals a few weeks ago, I said, it looks like you like a challenge. And I said, yeah, I sort of like to turn up at the location, moan a bit.
Yep.
And then go out, do a little walk around. It looks like I'm really busy and interested. I'm inside. It's like a duck on water. I'm looking nice and comfortable on top, but my legs are panicking like mad underneath. And sometimes the challenge it kind of makes me think a little bit more. I think,
Yeah.
I know you might. I don't know if you're touching on this later, but Iceland was a massive challenge for me because it's
coming up
wind
that one,
and rain and stuff. And it's challenges like that get me going. I love environments.
That's leading right into it. It's coming up. But I know what you mean, though. It's like a duck on water, because if I do location shoots, sometimes you get in the landscape, you're looking around to see where you're going to capture your shots, and sometimes I look at some landscapes, and go, well, what the hell am I going to do with this? And it's not until you actually get the model in there where that all comes together.
It's the model that makes a difference. Throw a bit of light on, and then as a plain background just suddenly changes into something really interesting. Yeah. That's why I tend to take a little single light on location, underexpose the background just slightly, and it just creates a bit. Annie Leibovitz is a great advocate of that style. Yeah. One light, underexposed. It just makes things look different, theatrical.
I'm laughing there, not at obviously the one light, not at what you said you take on light, but it's the one light thing, because I love shooting with one light. And if Jake was here now, he would have already tutted and sighed. He calls me like the master of one light. He calls me other things, to be fair, but he says, you and your bloody one light. It's like, I love it. I love shooting one light and getting creative.
Well, one light captures everything. It's either one light or three lights. So a lot of my lighting comes from the Hollywood glamour photographers. I studied that myself, and I love the 3-point Hollywood lighting. That's it. Nice. Now, it's actually moved on quite well, because we're going to get on to your Iceland thing as well. So, and it is actually going back a little while to one of your calendar shoots you did in Iceland. And obviously that series features mythical elements like a Pegasus and wolves and swords and bows and things like that. A really exciting set of images. Can you tell us about the project first? Yeah, I think that one was it's called the Goddesses, European Goddesses. It's just one of those throwaway emails. At one time I used to get all of my work through my website. not so much now. And it was one of these emails. It was on my birthday, actually. I was going out with the wife to Jamie Oliver's. I came out of the blue, said, "Love your work, James." It's German. I can't do that, but I love your work, James. We've got this contract. We're looking for a photographer and you fit the bill. Are you interested? And I said to the wife, "Oh, it's another one of these." I said, "Look, you've got to be in it to win it." "Yeah, I'm interested." And it just developed into this 27-day campaign.
Wow.
It was 27 days. It started in the UK and we drove through Germany, Belgium, Croatia, Slovenia, Ibiza with Dieter Von Teese. So it was just a phenomenal campaign. You know, it was worth some decent money as well, but it was the opportunity. You know, for the amount of time, you'd have charged 3 times the amount, but
yeah,
I just looked at it, and I'm still using that material now because when you're creating that type of content, it's a little bit timeless, a little bit twee maybe to some photographers. It makes you look a little bit like you're doing, you know, what's it called, Game of Thrones style stuff, but it's not. It was just a requirement, and I enjoyed doing it. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, it looked an awesome shoot, and now. All the images in that set, are they all shot on location, or is there composite work in there as well?
Well, yeah. Well, there's it's a typical example of the client got this great idea, then he throws down a thumbnail sketch for everyone. No passes or permits for anywhere.
Wow, really?
No plan of where to stay. And then, James, what are we going to do here? And I go, "Where's the visual? I don't have visual for this."
Really?
Right, okay, so then I'm having to think internally, but. So it's predominantly location, predominantly composition, or adding elements into the natural environment that was there.
Get you.
So most of the shots were there.
Yeah.
But there were a couple of shots, and one of the shots was with Petra Nemkova, is one of the top fashion models in the world.
Yeah.
I didn't know that till she turned up.
Really?
And the client comes and says, "We've got one more shot to do." Great. And this was at Stonehenge.
Okay.
Gone to Stonehenge, 1,500 quid for 2 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And you couldn't put your tripod on the grass. You had to put cardboard on your tripod, and yet everybody's leaning on it at solstice, but I couldn't put the tripod down. And I had to shoot there. And then as we're coming out, the German producer goes, "We need one more shot." It turned out I shot it in the Holiday Inn boardroom with a grey background I've got. And I had to do a composite, which is Venus, which is coming out of the water.
Okay.
And actually, it's quite accomplished. And the shot is the background shot is of Cornwall. It's one of my shots of Cornwall beaches.
Okay.
Would you believe? You probably know the beach if you looked at the shot. But yeah, that was the one that was shot entirely on a grey background.
Wow. So you've heard that here, folks. If you go and see the one of Venus coming out of the water, that is a composite shot on a grey background in a boardroom.
I did have to swear not to say anything about that at the time, but that was, I think it's 2014, so I'm out of copyright and all of that, so all the pictures are mine now to say and do what I want with.
Now let's face it, when you did the Iceland shots, I mean, there's a lot of ice there, and it's very cold out there during shoots. What challenges did you face for the models? We're not worried about you, James. You were probably wrapped up in thick coats. What challenge did you face for the models, and what was important to keep them at their best in front of the camera?
Wind chill is the worst thing. So Iceland, you've probably got I think it's 1 or 2 degrees. So it's October. There wasn't any frost or anything like that. A couple of mornings, but it was pretty much the wind chill. So all of the shots for Iceland had gale force winds. And I'm talking, that's why I haven't got, if you look at some of the behind the scenes, you can see I've got the Pro Photo kit, but there's no light control on it. So it's just the bare light. I learned how to do that before, but that's why I haven't got it on, because it was battling all over the place. So, I think when I was working with Nader on the beach of Black Beach in Vic,
yeah,
I mean, it's just a gale force wind. The client says, "James, she's costing, 20,000 euros for the day.
Jeez.
You've got to get the shot." So I turned around to the assistant at the time, Dean. I said, "Dean, mate, what am I going to do?" I said, "Look at the wind," and I'm going with all the problems. He says, "Just do what you do. Put the light on and pick her off from the background." That's all I did, is I put the light on.
Yeah.
I worked with her, and that's it. But the models soon deteriorate in terms of attitude.
Of course.
What they're not getting, we all know, if you get colder. But once they're on set, they were great. I don't sort of throw my toys out the pram with any of the models. I just try to work with them, like yourself, Wayne. You don't get anywhere by being nasty or attitude-y at all. Not at that level, really. It's not in my character.
No, there are, especially in past generations, in the early days, there were photographers that would be quite stern and would quite aggressively shout at their models and make them not feel very good. But I think it comes down to your personalities, and we know for a fact that if you look after them and take care of them, they'll generally give you a little bit more.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're being paid a lot of money. Well, your models were getting paid a lot of money that day, so they almost had to perform, really, didn't they?
Yeah, I think what I found with the models, though, if there were probably 7 or 8 of them, all in different camp. We got 4 or 5 camper vans going along.
Yeah,
but they'd really get upset that they weren't in the shot.
Oh, really?
And they were coming, why am I not in the shot? Well, actually, it's not. I don't really need you in this shot. This is shot for this girl.
Yeah.
And they were like quite Eastern European girls and very opinionated with myself and with the producer especially.
Yeah.
But they all wanted to be part of the shots, and they were getting upset when they weren't.
Really?
You could have one model where you're working 2 or 3 shots and one model that was waiting till the end of the day. She was coming up and saying, why aren't I being photographed? Well, I don't need you yet. Yeah. So that's one of the things I had to put up with, is that type of attitude. But just ignore it and get on with it.
That's surreal, isn't it? That they're actually getting almost a little bit jealous that they're not being photographed.
That was like, the word was jealousy because they weren't in the shot.
I guess you can understand it. I mean, when you're on a beautiful location and that many days, you can kind of understand in a way. It's like you want to be part of every part of it, don't you? Every bit of it.
It's a bit like when I was assisted. When I assisted years ago, obviously quite a few years ago, it was when you saw the photographer doing a great shot and inside you thought you could do it. You used to be envious. You think, oh, shaving cream, I could do that. I was going to say shit, but you said I can swear, so I used to think,
that's fine.
I was assisting photographers from London when I lived in Athens, and they're coming on direct bookings to do all the magazines, and I was sitting there and standing there and watching them do it, think, I can do that. Why are they doing it and not me? And I used to get envious. So it's a little bit like that envy that the models can see the shot and they're not in the shot for their book.
Yeah, fully understand it. So apart from the wind chill factor, because obviously in still images, I mean, you see wind blowing the hair and things, but obviously you're seeing a 2D image of a three-dimensional environment with elements, and we're not seeing any of that, not seeing those horrific winds and wind chill factors that you all had to go through. But what other kind of problems did you face in that environment? What was a challenge?
Getting to a lot of the locations. I think because it was the producer again from Germany, no passes or permits again. It was
quite shocking.
It was shocking from my point of view, because it puts you under pressure. You're ultimately the one that's delivering the content. If you don't, then it's your fault. But if it's not set up for you correctly in the beginning, it puts you under immense pressure. So a lot of the time it was that type of scenario, but equally it was getting to the location. So for one of the shots of the famous DC-3 crash, I can't even pronounce the beach that it's on, but it's a DC-3 crash, and it's about 3 miles to the location. But this is the one time that the producer had thought about it, because all the equipment had come from Germany via van. Mm-hmm. He'd put his BMW motorbike in the back of the van, so he pulled it up there and we transported everybody 3 miles to this location, the core team, and we set up and shot there. Wow. So it's access to the location, and all of the locations in Iceland are pretty much owned by a small amount of people, and you do need your tour guides to get there. Otherwise, you get into some serious trouble. One guy threatened to shoot this Marco guy because he was sitting on his turf house.
Really?
Which is a classic turf house.
Right.
Like Viking style, and they're all running across the tops of these turf. I said, you can't do that. Obviously in the UK, you've got all these boundaries and guidelines. You can't do it. You can't do it. Next thing, he comes out and he says, I'm going to shoot you if you don't get off it. And he says, I'll pay you some money. He says, I don't care about them. We get off. If you don't take all your crew off this site, I'll get my gun out and I'll shoot you.
Wow.
And it would have been within his rights to do it, I think. But we didn't hang around. He tried to negotiate the deal, but we just all got in the vans and disappeared.
Not the would you risk it for a chocolate biscuit kind of scenario, is it? Not really.
And one other point on that is equipment failure. And for example, I had the failure, I won't mention the brand, but it's a leading medium format brand and not Fuji.
You can mention it. Don't worry. I mean, we all know electronics fail in extreme environments.
Failed. It was a Hasselblad failure. The back fried. That was one of the problems I had. But I'd just come to the last shoot of the last day before we moved to the next location, and I was shooting some of my own stuff. Or in Iceland, in Iceland, we got out the vans. We walked about a mile across all this up and down rocks and everything, including Nader 99 Red Balloon star. You probably know.
Oh, yeah.
She was there with her entourage, our entourage. We got to the foot of this glacier on the black sand that was sinking. We set up the shots, and the producer, who brought all of his own B1 power packs and stuff like that, gave me the wrong one. It was flat. So as soon as I set the whole shot up in the wind and the squalls,
jeez,
take a picture, nothing worked, and she was getting a little bit leery. So just quickly, he ran back to the camper vans to get the extra battery. So Dean says, "You've got a speed light in your bag, haven't you?" I always carry a speed light, an SB 900 or whatever. He says, "Why don't we use that?" I went, "No, yeah, okay, I've done it before." So we just got the SB 900. Well, SB, I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, Nikon's are the SB 900s.
Yeah, SB 900s, and we put it onto the adapter for flash. The flash sync. Plugged it onto the Nikon, pointed it over above at the model, Nana, and her daughter. It was a shot for the calendar.
Oh yeah, I know the shot. Yeah. Mother and daughter. Yeah.
Because I'm underexposed in the background by a stop or two.
Yeah.
Did it right, we got it. By the time the guy had come back, we'd all shot, packed up, and he goes, what's going on? I said, "I've done it, mate. Come on, let's go." That's how we rock up in the UK. We get it done and get on with it and get out.
You've got to be on your feet. You've got to learn how to adapt, haven't you? So quick in shoots, because sometimes equipment and kit can fail, or sometimes you just need an alternative, and you've got to know how to still be able to pull that shot out of the bag when you haven't got everything that you would normally use.
It's also good to have somebody around you that thinks outside of the box bigger than you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your legs are going like crazy underneath the water trying to work out what you're going to do, and you can't, I'm being honest with you. You probably think it's all polished and stuff like that to your listeners. Not every shoot's polished and goes fantastically well. Like you said, you've got to adapt. You've got to adapt to the situation, get on with it, because if you don't get the picture, you're the one that's going to get it in the bullet in the brain.
Oh, yeah, it's not all smooth running and a glorious, happy world that we live in this industry. Some of it can be quite testing and trying on set, can't it? We know that for a fact. Now, that calendar shoot, now that's 12 major shoots, all in different locations pretty much. Let's discuss the logistics on a project like that. I mean, what does the planning look like for a project of that size? Now, we've already seen a downfall because there were no passes or anything else made for everybody, but what are the general logistics and the planning look like for a project of that size?
I think it's getting the whole crew that are relevant, and I think the production always makes sure that you're moving from one location to the other. So one location, which was the 27-day compared to the Iceland one, which is another big production, they were different, but logistics are getting people to the location and making sure they're okay, and then making sure you've got the right equipment to go away from wherever you're going, where are you going to, because nothing is just where your bags are just packed, and you've got to make sure you've got everything.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're at the top of the mountain, where's my light sink? Yeah. Things like that. But it's getting people to the location, which is really tricky, and keeping them happy while you're working, making sure there's food, and making sure they're warm, or making sure you've got the right equipment. I'm trying to think what else. I think, I think that's probably one of the biggest things, is getting from A to B and getting from B to C, and making sure that you've got consistency between all the shots, making sure your lighting's all the same.
Yeah.
Because effectively, when you bring all the shots together into a calendar or a brochure or whatever, they're all going to match up. And if you're using different lighting and f-stops and environments, you've got to try and remember what you're doing. And I remember when I assisted Uli Weber, a German photographer, everything was in a book, f-stops in a book, rolling the films up. He ran me into the ground, but everything was front clip, end clip, front clip, reverse clip.
Right.
Whereas now, it's sort of in your mind as you're working. You tend to database your mind. You keep access to everything there. It's not a good way to work.
Not a good way to work. No, sometimes, especially if you've got a return client and they want to do a similar sort of thing, I mean, then you need to pull that information and, perhaps, mood boards, lighting diagrams from that shoot, don't you? You need to rely on those to shoot it in a similar looking way.
I think the way I used to get around that with Flash when I was doing studios goes F11-125.
Yeah.
If it was F11-125, I knew I wasn't far off.
Now, on the back back of that on logistics. Now, some of our listeners who aren't pros may not be aware of the hoops sometimes we have to jump through in terms of logistics. Now, when you're shooting out of the country and you're wanting to take your photo gear overseas for a commercial shoot, one of the documents we have to fill in for this kind of thing is called a carnet. Can you explain for our listeners what one is and why we need them, and sometimes how much of a pain in the ass they can be if you have lots of kit to take?
No, I agree with that. I'll be honest with you, Wayne, I haven't really had to get too many of those because my clients have sort of done that in advance. I wouldn't necessarily get involved in that process. I'm after that process. So a lot of my shoots have been, in fact, all of those ones we're talking about have been driven there.
Okay.
Or we've sent it in advance. Or, for example, when I went to Iceland, it was an EasyJet flight. You just pay for extra equipment. So we got like 30 kilos of equipment. You go, oh my God, I can't get it all in. But actually, when you condense it down, you can get, I had a drone in there, got my little Mavic Pro drone and all the stuff. You can get it in, essentially. You know, and you can take, I got some little just before lockdown, I bought some Profoto B1 air sync.
Little 500 watt heads.
Yeah, 500, yeah. I bought a couple of those as a pack. For that very reason, because I'm sick and tired of carrying battery packs, and it makes you light on your feet. And to be honest, these days you can be very light on your feet.
Yeah, you can do. Yeah. Well, obviously, with that, obviously, you're not. I know past photographers that they're crossing borders and things, and sometimes when they're in places like South Africa, the borders and border patrol can be very, let's point blank, let's say corrupt. Yeah. And with the carnet, basically, it's a document that lists every piece of equipment you're carrying, right down to the last detail, tooth and nail. And what happens with that, when you cross borders, that needs to be checked. It basically means you're taking equipment out of your country on a short-term loan or short-term journey basis. In other words, you're not taking it in another country to sell.
Because they're worried about selling and stuff like that.
Worried about selling. So a carnet is to let border control know that you're taking it out for a purpose and it's not for sale. It is for short-term use, and then you're going to bring it all back again. Now, sometimes in other countries like South Africa, if you cross some of these corrupt borders, a lot of photographers can run into problems where border patrols are wanting cash in hand to allow you to bring that through. And if you're not very conversant with that and very supportive, some people do have their kit confiscated. And
had that as well.
Have you had that as well? Have you had kit confiscated before?
That was when I was a little bit more naive, when I went to live in Athens, for example, to go and work over as a direct booked assistant of direct booked photographers. I thought, well, because I'm staying here, I'll bring my enlarger over. It was in the film days, so I'd bring my enlarger and all the stuff that went in. And it was one of these Patterson kits. It was fantastic.
Oh, right, yeah.
I was assisting, so I was doing pictures of my own.
Nice.
I'd sell the pictures to models to make my living, to live in Athens and go on holiday. But everything I used to bring into the airport used to get confiscated for so many weeks, even though I got some sort of carnet and receipts and things like that. But also years ago on menswear shoots for Chiro Menswear, we're in Morocco.
Right.
Sounds grand. Sounds like a get around, but I have, but not over. When you put it over like 15, 25 years, it's not that many. But Morocco, every border.
Yeah.
We would get stopped.
Yeah, I heard that.
Me to get out, because my second name being Nader.
Right.
I would be taken out. And I'll be marched into a small... These days, you'd be very wary about doing that type of activity, because taking me out of the car and taking me into the border control... But there weren't borders per se. It was just little provincial borders, and they'd take you out, and there'd be a couple of guys with rifles.
Yeah.
And they'd take me out and say, where does your father come from? Or what's that got to do with it? And I go, well, Nader, are you this or are you that? No, I'm English. Yeah, but this name doesn't indicate that. And, now you'd be worried about that. But, yeah, so... And they'd always rifle through your equipment, see what's there. But because they didn't have any way of taking it and selling it, they didn't know really we were okay. Whereas now they're a little bit more, well, it's a camera, it's worth so much, I'll take that and sell it.
Yeah, it's shocking, and it's so shocking and corrupt. Yeah, and, in some of those countries like that are a bit more high risk and corrupt, it can be quite dangerous as well. So... Folks, if you're planning a commercial shoot at all, make sure you have all your paperwork in order if you don't want to risk losing your gear. And if you're working for a client, make sure you have all those contact addresses and phone numbers if they're not with you, in case you need any backing or support on that.
Bailout,
yeah, indeed. Right, James. Well, there's the first part of the show done. Now we're coming to the fun section. Okay, we're coming to, here it is, folks. We do it in the middle of the show. It's our rapid fire, not so rapid fire round. For our listeners of previous episodes, it used to be our rapid fire round, but we found some questions weren't answered as quickly as the title suggests. So we've renamed it the rapid fire, not so rapid fire round. Are you ready for this, James? 10 random questions that may have no intellectual use for anyone and may not even be photography related.
Take some time to answer. Apologise in advance.
I think you'll smash this, mate, to be honest. Okay. For your on-location shoots, what gadget is a must-have in your camera bag?
Light meter.
Oh, good man. That's a question later on in the show as well. Perfect. Have you ever dropped or lost a camera on a location shoot?
I've dropped a camera and smashed it, and I've also completely drenched a camera and had to have it replaced.
Nice. Pulling one from your Iceland trip, can you make me look good on a Pegasus?
I could, yeah. Just need the right stylist and the right makeup artist. The lighting would do it and the location would be perfect.
And a black bag over my head and we're done.
Eyes and mouth cut into it and we'll be fine.
One camera, one lens, what would it be?
It'd be the Nikon 2470 and the Nikon camera, yeah.
Which Nikon?
D850.
Nice. That's what Jake uses. Oh man, he's going to miss these questions so much. Oh, we've kind of had this question already. Ever had any photo kit confiscated at an airport?
Yes, I have. Athens airport years ago.
Did you get it back?
I did, but it took probably over a month and a half because I was actually living there, yeah.
A month and a half to get it back?
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of red tape when you go to a place like that. It's like, oh, come Avrio, tomorrow, come tomorrow. And tomorrow never happened.
Jesus. So, there you are, folks. If you ever confiscated, cancel your shoot for the next 4 weeks. How many croissants can you eat in 15 minutes?
Oh, one. It's not my type of thing.
Have you ever done a cheap camera challenge? Do you know what that is?
I've been asked to do them. And I've seen people do them, but I haven't. But sometimes I use cheap cameras anyway, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, no, I'd love to do something like that. I've seen it done. I think it's quite good. I like the idea. Actually, does one of these lomography Polaroid cameras count? I've got two.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Could
I've used one of those not long ago. In fact, not last week, the week before, and it was pretty good.
Nice. There you go. We're going to get you something even cheaper and even more rubbish. See how you cope with that one.
It'd be a good laugh.
It'd be fun, wouldn't it? Colour or black and white?
Black and white.
Ooh, I can fucking hear Jake cringing already, even though he's not here.
Yeah, but he's very colourful, isn't he? I like colour, but I come from the classic Hollywood black and white movies, film noir. I love the subtleties of dynamic range and tone in the highlight. I just love it. Creamy whites. Love it.
Same, man. Same. Digital or film?
I would have said film, and I like film. I used to do all my own black and white processing and printing for clients and everything, but you know what? The only time I go back into a darkroom to do some fine art stuff, commercially, Photoshop and digital all the time. You don't need Polaroid. It's instant. Throw it away. Use it whatever you want. So it's a bit of a dicey one. That game of two. Is it a game of two halves? Is it or something?
Yeah, double-edged sword, hanging in a balance on that one. No definitive answer. Oh, tension.
I think if I had to choose at the moment, it would be digital. But for fine art point of view, I'd love to go back. I've still got my film camera in the attic. I've got my Bronica ETRS with all the lenses and everything. And on the odd occasion, I do a little browse on eBay for the Pentax 6.7 kits.
Oh, you're gonna hate this. Jake recently bought a Pentax 6.7.
I'd like to get one. It's just I want to be able to use it. That's the thing. Otherwise, it's like everything else you start buying and collecting. You don't use them all. You just feel that you need them, but you don't actually use them.
See, I was always a Mamiya RB and RZ guy in the day, so I've still got those.
RZ 6.7.
Yeah, I still got a couple of those, which I still shoot some film.
The only thing is though, with film, you had to do that compensation for the bellows and stuff like that. So
for close work, yeah.
How many times do you put a film through processing and you come back, oh my God, it's dark. What's the client going to say?
For close-up work, you do have to do compensation for exposure on a bellows. Yeah, indeed. Right, last question. Question number 10. Name one thing or one person you'd really want to get in front of your camera.
Linda Evangelista.
Oh nice. Cheekbones on her.
Oh my God, what? But in the day of the 80s and 90s, when she was at her height with the short hair and the lovely Italian Dolce Gabbana look.
And when she did the George Michael music video in the handlebarred.
I talked, when I said to the wife, I said, "Oh God, just love to photograph it." It's just, for me, that's the look. That's the look for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, there's our rapid fire, not so rapid fire round, as it proved itself again on question 9.
I agree. I enjoyed that. That was good.
See, I told you it'd be painless. And
it sort of gets you to search about yourself, doesn't it? When you put on the spot, and think, "Oh, I never thought about that."
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that was quite subtle, to be fair. Some of them are so random and not even related to photography. So you had a lucky escape, really. I think it's quite gentle. Now you've kind of answered this already, but I'm going to just go a bit deeper on it. Are you still a light meter kind of guy when setting up, or with the digital age of mirrorless, do you find yourself using a light meter less now? And would you still encourage people to use and understand a light meter?
Okay, yeah. So recently, years ago, I bought I can't even remember what the light meter name is. Cyanotypes, I think it's Cyanotypes, one of the big la-di-da ones. I bought one of those because I thought, and I used it a little bit. But like you said, when was the last time you really needed to get into a studio and use a light meter? You just go bang. Oh, it's a bit dark. Power up the light. Open up your ISO. Open your f-stop. You're done. You can gauge it, but recently I've started to use it. When I used to use flash meters, I would build a picture up in my mind. So high, low, high, low, high, low, light, dark. And in my mind, I'd have this vision of what the light was going to fall off from. And I think because I'm going more to the fine art fashion sort of style images, I feel like it's part of the process that's been lost. And I think you need to... I think personally, I need to think more about what I do, and I think a light meter actually encourages you to think about what you're trying to capture more. Even though you're using a digital camera, I'd say that get yourself a cheaper light meter and play around with it, get some idea, because you can create a visual note of what you're doing with a light meter.
Yeah. And I think it's a back and forth learning lesson there as well, isn't it? Because if you would say take one strobe or one light, even continuous light, and you were to put that with just a bare reflector on it and point it at your subject, you could measure your key exposure in its hotspot if you're using the hotspot, and then you could meter how that light falls off across your subject. So you're learning about not only light in the light meter and seeing how that light changes in terms of f-stops, but you're also learning what that modifier does on that light at that distance, at that power. And then if you were to swap that modifier over for a softbox, you'll see how that exposure and fall off and everything changes.
I agree, yeah.
And then it teaches you to see it with your eyes.
Sorry, I think it's more evident. It was more evident with film because you had to have that knowledge. Because there was no chance for mistakes. If you didn't get it right, you got nothing on that film. There was nothing at all either. I mean, you could speak to my old assistant Dean, and he'd say to you, "I don't know how he got anything out of those negatives. They were so thin."
Oh God, yeah, overexposed.
Yeah, they're so thin. There was nothing in them, but you always got a shot. So,
yeah,
there you go. It's one of those things, isn't it? But yeah,
I don't know that in the film days. If you overexpose a shot in film, then negative becomes very, very thin and transparent, which means you have very little contrast or detail in there.
You can't pull it out with anything.
It's emotion.
You
so
can do it with your multi-grade print filters up to level 5, but it's nothing like the grades of Photoshop and stuff.
No, it's a physical emotion substrate. So once that negative is burnt through to transparency, it means there is actually zero detail in there. So yeah, overexposure of film ends up having thin negatives.
And how do you explain that to the client, which I've had to do on occasions? It's got fogged in customs.
Oh, the labs have messed up the processing again. We're going to have to reshoot.
I used to blame customs, or if I was coming with a load of film for the menswear shoots, I'd say, "Oh, this one's fogged. That one got lost." I'd look at it on the light box and the clip test or the contact sheet. Oh my God! Right, that one got lost in processing, got damaged. That's all I could do.
So do you still use one with your digital camera as well then? You still sort of take your base value shot?
all the time, but the last few shoots I have. Probably that's because I've gone back into the studio.
Yeah.
Working on, I'll be honest, when I've been in, for example, in Iceland, when I was in location, I haven't really got that much time to get a light meter, and the luxury of being able to take that light meter and move it around. You got there. Normally, you get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. But you get to the location at 5:30 in the afternoon for whatever reason, because I'm messing around.
Yeah.
And I'd have 30 minutes to shoot before it went dark. And so the last thing on my mind was a light meter. Just shoot. Yeah, it's a bit light, a bit dark. Think about what I'm going to be doing in the post-production process. Think that's fine.
Yeah. And the thing is, with modern flash technology and sort of, battery operated, flash or strobes or monoblocks now, a lot of our triggers on our cameras, we can control the lights from our triggers. So there's not a lot of running back and forth, is it? I mean, once the light is in position and at the angle you want, you can knock the power of the light up and down basically from on top of your camera, can't you? So it is quite quick, really, to do a visual adjust. Right. Now, I see a lot of great lighting in your work. And for me, great lighting, I feel, should overrule how expensive a camera you can buy or use.
Agree entirely, yes.
How important is light, shape, and form for you in your work, and why should photographers pay more attention to that than having the latest piece of camera gear in their bag?
Because you can have the latest bit of equipment, but unless you're getting the raw material, you're not going. It doesn't matter what you've got. And I think having the great light and shape and form, which I love that term, light, shape, and form. I think it's essential to start with that and to create and craft. Because you had to. These days, I find a lot of people will shoot shit, and expect it to be pulled out and retouched in Photoshop, and they do. And to be honest, I've done it as well. I've shot some right shite, and it's come out okay because I go, well, Photoshop will save it. And the amount of times I've stood there with a client and they go, oh, what's wrong with that? Oh, it's all right, Photoshop. And if you didn't have Photoshop, you had to have your lighting. You had to craft with light. Like, for example, Jake, because he uses quite a few lights. His crafting, he knows you couldn't just do that. I know he uses Photoshop a lot, but he crafts with his light. He knows what he's getting. You couldn't just stick one light on and get that. In fact, I was looking at Instagram this morning, actually, and I saw, on the feed, I saw this guy take some pictures, some gels, and his light, he got the gels on it, but he was shooting and the model was moving the head and it just frozen. I thought, wow, that looks really good. Maybe I should do something like that. But it's all about lighting and crafting with light. If you understand your lights and what it's delivering, I feel that then you've got a really good chance of getting something decent. But if you just stick a model in the background, put a flash on, I think video's the worst for that. So even, I mentioned the guy's got these red cameras. I'm not going to mention his name. His idea of setting up lighting is a LED light panel at 45 degrees on either side and going... And I go, what are you doing? Yeah, but I'm lighting. No, you're doing copy lighting. I used to copy pictures onto a camera. Copy lighting. 245s. Yeah, 245s. No. So lighting for me is key. And the more simple it is, the better it is, from my point of view. I do like 3-point lighting, and I like 2-point lighting, a bit reflection and stuff. But I think you can be equally as clever with one light and reflectors and baffle boards, and you can get the same effect with digital processes.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're all different artists in our own right, and we all use however many lights we need to use to get our shot. But I'm a big lover of simplicity, and I use one light, and sometimes I use mirrors and reflectors to reflect that one light to turn it into a 2-3 light effect. So just because you got something that looks like 3 lights, it doesn't necessarily mean you need 3 lights. You can use reflectors and mirrors.
It takes the edge out of the light. It does something different with it, doesn't it? And you're using the creative process a little bit differently with that.
It's like we say, it's thinking outside the box. But to do that, you've got to be able to see your light in the first place, haven't you?
You've got to understand your light before you do it.
That's one thing a lot of photographers don't do when they're learning in the early years, is being able to see light with your eyes rather than looking at what happened to the light afterwards on your computer screen.
Yeah, and I think that's what's missing in a lot. Obviously, I'd like to get my workshops going. I've never got to that point, but there's a lot of workshops out there with people who are doing really well, but they're teaching nothing. All they're doing is bringing people to a studio and letting them take some stats, but they're not actually giving them the process and letting them understand what's going on. And I think that's wrong, and that's what's damaging photography. Understand the process, and you'll go out and get some clients. If you don't understand the process, the biggest example, I'm not going to mention any names, but I set up a production company outside of the one I've got in London with a guy who was going to be the front man. He went out, we got some business and stuff like that. I went on holiday, came back, and he said to me, James, while you've been away, what you've been doing? He says, I set up a company on my own. I'm going to be doing test shots of models. I've been telling you to do this for years. I said, well, isn't that a bit of a sorry. Isn't that a little bit along the lines of doing the same as me? Yeah, but I've asked you to do it as part of the production process. Anyway, I'm going to do it, bitch. That's what he said to me. And he went off and he started to do all these shots of models and things, and doing all right at it. But he said to me, he says, if I get a job that comes in based on the work that I do, you can do it. Why is that? And he says, because I wouldn't know how to light it and I wouldn't know how to deliver it and work with the client. I said, and that's why you're not going to be a photographer and I'm the photographer, because it's not about shooting something that's in front of you. It's about understanding the process and the client and the models and everything. And that's the difference that people don't understand. And I'm not saying that it's just me and I'm the big I am, but that is the simple process of photography as it used to be. There was a big process to being a photographer, which is now not necessarily there. And that's why everybody's a photographer.
Yeah, and me and Jake have said this before, actually. You know, the world is becoming very, in terms of learning, especially with digital online media, people are becoming very impatient and they don't want to learn how to make mistakes and learn from what they did wrong so that they don't do it the next time. We found out that when people are watching any video content, they want the content as short as possible. And they just want you to tell them to put lights in point A, point B, and point C, what settings you want them on so they can replicate your shot. They don't want to learn the process of why we put them there and why we don't put them there, and why if we put them there, it looks like this and it looks wrong. But then if we move them over here, it looks right. But then if we tweak it a little bit more, it looks even better. People don't seem to want that learning process anymore, which is a shame. Yeah, it's all convenience now. Everything is convenience, knowledge. You know, just tell me what I need to know and nothing else.
I'm a bit like that as well, though. I've got to admit, you know, when was the last time you lost your temper when the page didn't load on the website for 5 seconds? You're like, shit.
Well, yeah, bloody internet, what's going on?
My lad's the worst. It's just got to go off for an instant and he's down the stairs and he's going, what's going on that internet? Get on. It's gone off for 5 seconds. Give it a chance to load, you know. And it is like that. You do get a little bit. I expect it now, and I can understand where they're coming from. And you know, for example, I played a trumpet as a student when I was at school for 6 years. I was a trumpeter, first trumpeter, and then I've not touched it for 40 years ago or something like that. However, I decided in lockdown to pick up a guitar.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's shocking. So I've tried for the last few months to do some plinky plonky strumming, and then I've left it for 3 weeks, and I thought I'm going to get a better guitar because it's going to. So I went and got myself a better guitar to sound even worse. So exactly what you're saying in the beginning about equipment, buying the best equipment. It's not the best, but it was the best of the budget, and it still sounds shite.
The best equipment you can have, people, even if you've got a shitty camera, is your imagination and your eyes. Seriously.
Exactly, yeah. Imagination, lighting, and your eyes.
Yeah, it's like I say to some when I give lectures sometimes, I said, look, guys, it doesn't matter if you've got a £300 or $300 camera or a $25,000 or dollar camera. You know, if what you create in front of you looks shit, it's going to look shit in both cameras, except in the $25,000 camera is going to look a better quality of shit. You know, they're just a digital box. They only record what you create. So if what you create looks a bit shit, then it's going to look it in both cameras. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
So you mentioned you do workshops.
Yeah, I do. I do a lot of live things for Fujifilm as well, of course, and so I'm an ambassador for Arri Lighting as well. So I do a lot of live sort of fashion shoots and beauty shoots.
It scares me that. People have said, "Why don't you do them?" And I've set up websites to do it, and I want to do this, but the problem with me, everything I try to do is big production, and people just aren't going to. And I'm just not a great person in front of the camera. I'm getting better because I've done doing more and more interviews. But I mean, you're very professional and polished after 30 podcasts. And I've got to admit, I like the sound in these earphones of me. My voice sounds very DJ-ish. It's quite good. But yeah, I'd love to be able to stand up and maybe talk a little bit about what I know. But I know that when I did it or do it, it might not be delivered in the best way, but somebody said be yourself and be authentic, and that's it. That's all you can be. So I am thinking about doing that myself.
Yeah, I think you got to be yourself. I mean, I find it. I'm just myself. But the thing is, when I'm doing workshops and things, any of my attendees all have varying different degrees of skills and understanding and knowledge. So I think the biggest thing I find when doing workshops is that you've got to really be visually aware of which of your attendees are nervous, which ones don't want to stand up and be first to shoot the model, which ones are pulling those frowning faces when you say something not necessarily deep technical, but technical about lighting or positioning light. You can see they don't understand. I think for me, I'm very visually aware. So when I see those people having those facial responses, I know perhaps they need that explained in a slightly different way. And I'll go and explain it in a simpler form, perhaps, and then the penny drops and they understand it. And I think I just work with people like that. And then you're kind of tailoring your demonstration, that particular setup, to everybody's individual skill sets and levels. You've got to vary it and adjust it a little bit, or else they get lost in translation.
Would you recommend me having a go?
Oh, hell yeah. I mean, just set out what you're going to do in a day, and then it's no different than doing a shoot. You've got that fixed in your mindset. You've got your looks fixed. You've already got your lighting fixed. The 2 or 3 lighting setups you're going to do, and then it's just carrying those out, explaining what lighting you've got, why I'm using it, why I'm putting it here, what I'm looking for in a model, perhaps have your mood board and everything else, and then let people take some shots, look at their images, give them feedback.
I kind of think that's my problem because I don't know why I use it. I just know what it looks like.
Yeah.
And so I don't really analyze my process over the years, and maybe I need to sit down and think why I do stuff. I just tend to do it, and I'm not saying it's the big I do it because I'm so good at it. It's because that's what I'm trying. I'm dealing with a client's requests or my own requests at what I need to do, and I just do it. But analysing it to help other people understand why you're doing it and how benefit it's going to be to them is something I probably need to think about, instead of just saying, I'm going to do a workshop, just join me, and you might be able to help me out on that if you won't mind, because I'm shocking at that type of stuff.
To be fair, it's not everyone's bag. I mean, some people dread being in front of other people and what they're doing in a shoot and explaining it, and other people don't feel comfortable at doing it, or they just think it's not their thing, because even though they've got all that information on the inside, they can't always translate it and relay it on the outside in a formidable format. What we're like as creatives, sometimes our thought processes are a bit sort of jumbled.
Overthink.
Yeah.
Overthink things, over-engineer stuff.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that. Now, James, your commercial work, I mean, it's all extremely, let's say it's all extremely polished, but we can also see that you enjoy dabbling in the fine art side. Dabbling may not be the right word there. In the fine art side of photography, and you've been experimenting a lot with old analog processes and wet plate and everything else like that, in terms of looks. What are you enjoying about the more traditional aspects of photography?
It's the process. When I was younger at university, Polytechnic it was then, I was fortunate enough to go to RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, on an exchange, which is Kodak City. I got to see the original camera that shot Gone with the Wind, and I was introduced to a guy over there, John Wood his name was, and he was taught by Ansel Adams. He actually knew, and he knew this process called cyanotype and wet plate and gum bichromate. What's that? Because I was very naive then. And he showed me it, and I sort of, contact printing, sun prints they're called, cyanotypes. And it's something that I really enjoyed, that process, seeing something develop like in the darkroom. And I enjoy those processes, although it's quite tricky unless you've got a darkroom or some facilities. In fact, in my cupboard here, I've got some cyanotype chemicals. That was the lockdown thing, paper, everything to do. ready to do it. And guess what? Like everything else, it's just been left on the shelf. It's literally on the shelf there. Because then over-analysing, like I just said, is, do people really want to know that I'm a fashion photographer and that's what an advertising photographer? But yeah, so some of those processes have come through into my advertising work. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of an example of where that would be, but I can't quite think of some of my own work that I've done. It's mainly the process for me is retouching and post-production, do a lot of that myself. Apart from, as I said before we started, I'm getting to the point where I'd like to leave the skin specialist to do the skin because I just haven't got the patience to do it anymore.
I'm with you on that one. And I've said it before, I don't hide behind it. Yes, I retouch my own work, but not all of my work, especially when it comes to commercial work. It's a time versus money process, for me.
I agree.
Yeah.
So all my Superdrug stuff, for example, those are boxes, hair products. They were retouched abroad, done really nicely. I just couldn't do that level of retouching.
And there's nothing wrong with that in the commercial world. I mean, that's why there are retouchers in this world, and it's just why they're not photographers and we're photographers and they're retouchers. I mean, yes, we can do our own work, but after a shoot, sometimes when you have a lot of shots to edit and retouch for a commercial purpose, that takes a lot of time, which means then you're not concentrating on your photographic side. So that's why we have this balance of retouchers in our world, and that's what they're there for. That's why we have that industry. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Me and Jake have spoke about that before, because obviously Jake retouches all his own. And doesn't sort of use any retouchers for any work. So because he wants to be in control of the whole process of his vision, which I can understand.
I think it depends, like you said, if it's for a client and they expect a certain level, especially for boxed products that people are going to be buying, and then you have to make that decision. If it comes down to my own, I've just made a decision recently for a faces portrait. I wanted to get it done C, and I thought, I need to assign that.
Yeah,
but composite work and that type of retouching, I do that myself because I like it.
Yeah. It's part of the industry. It is, horses for courses. So on the analog stuff, then, are you producing even more work via those processes now? Then, or not with your Cyanotype kit in the cupboard? You're not.
There's plans to go into more analog stuff. I have done some shooting with film. I was invited up to Knutsford, to Ilford. They invited me to see the new processes for all the films because I got up and running again. And they were going to give me a whole batch of film to go out. I said, leave it with me because I'm setting up a blog. I might do some stuff on there. I went back and the whole, you got to take that up into the whole team that were there, going to give you the stuff, weren't there. So, you can buy it now. I said, forget it. But no, I plan to do some more film. I do plan to do some black and whites. Now I'm going more into this fine art gallery style work that allows me to produce what I want with whom I want and look like how I want it to look. Then I think there's room for me to do a lot more colour film. In fact, I was only talking about a book, Rebecca Blake, from 1980s. It was a book where she used to shoot colour film, underexpose it and over-process it, speed it up, produce a grain. I said, I might try a bit of that, actually.
Yeah.
It's easy to do in Photoshop, but the skill in processing and understanding is completely different. So, yeah, a little bit more analog's going to come.
Yeah, nice, man. Well, we look forward to seeing that. And obviously, I hope our listeners will keep looking back to see how that progresses on your websites. Now, in our industry, when it comes to commercial work in fashion and beauty, we regularly use mood boards for our shoots. Mm-hmm. Would you like to tell perhaps our listeners that don't quite fully understand what a mood board is, why they're so important for us as photographers, especially in the commercial world, especially for, production quality?
Okay, so I use mood boards quite a bit for my own stuff, for clients or whatever. And a mood board for me is a great way of getting everybody to believe the story that you're creating. If you can visualize it more than, you can get a PDF with loads of text on there, but 9 times out of 10, it's lost in translation. But if you've got a mood board, it helps deliver the message visually. And what a mood board means for me is the client comes in with a suggestion, you go out and do your research and you do your online recce, Google images, pull it together, bring other people's work in, create a board of maybe 20, 30 images, take it over different looks. You might have 8 or 9 different mood boards for each look. That can involve styling, makeup, hair, lighting, how you're going to change it. And it also keeps your shoots on track through the day. It allows you to try and put some timings against it. More so mood boards now, but when I was working on location in the past, I would use Polaroids. So I'd go out for a day, 2 or 3 days recce in advance, shoot all the Polaroids, stick them into a book, and then in the book we put roughly f-stops, draw on them. Then by the side of it, we'd analyse the models. So then that was my mood board for then. So then put it down, this model, that location, this lighting. So it's moved a little bit away from that. I have got a book that I was going to put out in one of my journals about that. But yeah, so mood boards for me are very important in terms of setting the style. And you know, if there's any problem, we just get everybody back together and say, look, here's the mood board. This, we're not copying it. It's just purely a visual representation of everything coming together and what we'd like to achieve. I think some people could use a mood board to just try and interpret it as it is. That's what we're going for, and that's the danger.
Yeah, indeed. And I think for people that have never used one, it's, you know, there's plenty of information on the internet, but perhaps use one for your next shoot and just make it very simple, not perhaps as complex and complicated as some of ours can be. You know, sometimes we'll have mood boards, like James said, that we'll have mood boards for lighting, we'll have mood boards for makeup, for color palettes, for posing, for style, all those kind of things. But you don't always need to go that deep. Just have a general mood board for the feel of the look you want in your shoot, and that will help you with model posing and things, especially if you're not very good at directing.
I think a mood board is really good if you're talking to a stylist and you've not got a whole team around with so doing your own shoot. It's great for you to focus between the two and try and get the story together. So it doesn't have to be too intense like with clients work and commercial. It can be very light-hearted, a couple of A4 pages with 4 pictures on it, just to give you and the stylist and the makeup artist a little bit of a point of reference, really.
Yeah, indeed. And they can help almost in a way calm the mind a little bit for the more inexperienced photographer, and it's the duck on water thing again. It stops the old legs flapping in on the inside and getting a bit panicky on your shots. Gives you a bit of a visual reference. Now, I see you have a projects page on your website, and in there you have the street casting and street ink projects. And they're really interesting. Some very beautiful shots in there and very interesting people and characters as well. Can you tell us about that? And firstly, are these just regular people you've photographed, regular people on the streets?
Yeah, so you're delving into a little bit of my psyche, aren't you? So you start to unravel a little bit more about what I do outside of just the posts that go out on the website. So at the end of the day, I'm a photographer, and whether I shoot fashion advertising, sometimes I like to take pictures and I like to have challenges. And one of the challenges a few years ago is that you heard me previously mention a guy who's got this stock agency Loop Images, which is also dying a death, really. But he said to me, James, why don't we team up? You've gone a little bit quiet. I'm a little quiet. This was about 6 years ago. He says, let's form a business and we'll shoot stock. I went, you know what? That's a great idea. Brilliant. I made 400 quid in 18 months. I shot 10,000 pictures, over 10,000 pictures. 4,500 got accepted as stock images in 15 different stock agencies around the world. Now you could say you're shite at what you do, or there's no business or no market there. And I'd like to say it was the second one, but not the first one. But the fact that you've picked up on some of those pictures means that they must be half decent. So part of it, so going to model agency and trying to do that, it was going to cost a fortune, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Anyway, so we went to something called Star Now. Star Now, for anybody who wants to know, if you're an upcoming photographer or you just want to get some models and things, if you go in there and you sign up, you can get on there for free, but you might have to pay if you want to post your casting or whatever. We went on there and we found all these people. So we just put casting, London, city centre, tattoos, show up, and then give them a little bit of a brief. So these were 2 or 3 shoots that I did like that. So they're just people who turned up. So wannabes, maybe done something, maybe a model wanting someone. So it was a mixture, but predominantly most of them, I'd say, right, you got 3 minutes. You're going to be in front of the camera and I'm going to ask you a couple of questions and I'm going to photograph it and then we're going to video it. And then from there, they'd do a sign off and we'd put it into the stock. But these, I've always kept the images and I really like them because it's a different me. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. And I've just started to use them now. So the projects was something I was a little bit twitchy about putting on there, but I just thought it's people, lifestyle. Fashion is a person, fashion is a location. It's the same thing. So, you know what? All these walls about you do this, that, and can't say anything. I've gone, forget, I can't be bothered anymore. I'm tired. It's just me.
The restraints.
And that's what I'm doing now. So whether you like it, if you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And agents tend to not like it. So, you know what? Forget it. I'm not bothered with you.
And is this an ongoing project? Is this sort of an ongoing thing then?
Ongoing projects. So these are things that I tend to do. I've got quite a few on my blog, actually, which I've got quite a few on there. And I'm looking for different things all the time. So there was one that I was trying to set up. Can't remember what it was now, but I've got another few that I'm trying to set up. But I just like to explore the idea. I tell you, there's a photographer that I found. I don't know if you know of him. In fact, it was a stock agency guy. I said, just Platon.
Platon, yeah.
So he's great at doing these headshots and that. But yeah, okay, I'll look at those pictures. Great. Some are good, some are bad. You know, I can say that. But what I really liked about the documentary of him was him and how he engaged with those people and the way because he's using a film camera, how he's continually manually focusing, engaging, and his fingers are going like this, but he's constantly talking to the person. And I could see that he got a real connection with the person. I thought, oh, I really like that. I really liked the way he'd got a lot to say about what he did, how he did it, and then how he delivered it. And I'm not really that versed with the final images. I didn't really like all of them, but it was just his process. His process was fantastic. And it's a little bit of that was what I'm trying to capture for myself in a way.
Yeah, because we sometimes as commercial photographers, we all get stuck in that commercial rut, don't we? And we forget to let go of those constraints. But understanding the process, I think it's good. Yeah, and Platon's quite an exuberant character in himself anyway, isn't he? Maybe if you've got a link to that documentary, I think our listeners would probably love to click into that, have a look at that to understand that.
It was on Netflix, actually.
Oh, cool.
I'll send it to you afterwards.
Yeah. We'll drop it in the show notes.
Yeah, no, it's a good watch. And if you watch, it's his subtleties of communication. The camera is just secondary to what he's doing, which for me is completely different because camera and what I'm doing is the forefront of the idea. But he was just, it's just part of my hands. I'm not really bothered about that. I'm just going to take snaps.
It's just a tool.
You watch the process. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's interesting. No, but I mean, go back to your project. I love your projects. I mean, so for people who want that, just go to jamesnader.co.uk's website and go to projects, and you'll see all these street portraits and tattoo portraits. I think they're awesome. Now, one thing I see on that, because I've got that in front of me, is obviously you shot them in studio, which frightened you to death. But just out of interest, what lighting are you using there? Because obviously I see the same ghosted shadow behind them. It's very, very subtle, but it almost looks a bit like a ring flash shadow, but a bit more softer.
Yeah. You're not far off there. Yeah, so... Yeah, you're not far off. But I tell you, it was a really expensive piece of kit that I used. I'd managed to get it from Amazon. It cost 90 quid.
I love these top tech tips.
It's about, well, I can give you a link to that. It was a ring light that you can buy. I don't know, it was about 40, 50, 90, 100, no more than 110 quid.
Okay.
And it goes quite bright, and you can turn it up. It wasn't a bi-colour, so it was just the light that was there.
It was a flash unit or continuous light?
No, it's LED.
Oh, okay,
cool. LED quite a bit, so not flash. I have got I've got the Bowens, as we know, ring flash, but I don't use it because it's like clunky. But that you just pull it out. Don't know where it is. Pull it out, put it on a tripod, and put your camera in the middle of it, and that's it. Because you can use your ISO to clean up the whites and everything like that. So that project Street Casting was shot entirely with a ring LED light for 100 quid.
Nice.
I mean, some of the f-stops would be like f8, f11, f8, something like that. And ISO, I tend to use around 400, 640, something like that. So I'm not really worried with that lighting about using high ISOs. I'm not really that bothered. But it affects the picture. But yeah, so there's a few in there. I'm just trying to see what else was in there.
I think they're brilliant. And what I love about stuff like this, when it's not commercial, is that the individual characters of these people coming out in their shots. Yeah, it's just real people, real characters, real moods and expressions. And that's what I think makes this series I'm going to say it's just so beautiful. It's just the character of an individual.
The tattoo one, for example, which is underneath, that was different lighting. I was just looking because I've got the website in front of me now.
Oh yeah.
So that was Kino lighting. So the fluorescent tubes.
Yeah.
So that's what that was. But normally when we're in a studio, we'll bring the models away from the background. But sometimes for me, it's nice to get them close to the background. And sometimes when the backgrounds are crinkled, it just do things that aren't always clean is what this was about. It's like turn up, give it a go. But all of these were directed by me. So what I mean by that, it's not that I was a great director. I'd say to them, right, 3 minutes. This is what I want you to do. I want to show you personality, blah, blah, blah. And then I'd work with it. So as soon as I started to get something from there, do this, that's great. No, do a bit more of that. Can you do anything funny? Can you do this? What about winking? Stick your tongue out, magazine. And then they started to understand what they were getting. And then they'd just fire off and do it. Say, right, thanks very much. Give your name to what's his name over there. And there's a whole sequence of shots where they stand there holding the card up with their name on.
Yeah, of course.
And then, because the idea was, this was a casting, so I could use them for stock photography. But then I realised that this was a better way of doing it. So... But yeah, if you carry on down, you can see them. They're holding the name cards up.
Yeah. I can see that now, and it's nice that you're just shooting all this continuous light as well, not flash. So a lot of people are afraid of that as well.
What you see is what you get. That's for me the easiest thing I can. If I'm seeing what I'm getting, I just get on with it. And you probably say this is bad photography, but when I get flash in front of me, I find it tiresome trying to. You guys are experienced more than me in using flash and getting it right. Even with a single light, it's when I see that picture come back to me on the camera, I go, that's not what I'm looking for. Yeah. And then I find that I'm having to search in my memory banks to how it's going to be processed. Whereas when I'm looking at this, because it's available light, ambient light, LED light, I'm getting what I see.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Yeah, it is nice to shoot continuous light to get that.
Yeah,
I completely agree. And these projects, are these? Obviously, you said it was a casting. Are these because you're going to use them for stock? Are these all unpaid sort of shots for these people doing the casting?
Yeah, so these are all unpaid. They just turned up. They all got pictures out of it, and I just developed it into my own personal projects. And I've got a few more of them, and you can see more in different areas of websites and different links and things like that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Now, another thing I'd just like to touch on a little bit, and it's not so exciting as seeing beautiful imagery and the process and learning the process behind it, and your vision and your input, and that is marketing, and more precisely in marketing is SEO, or search engine optimization. I know we've had a brief conversation on this previously. SEO on Google. And why it's important for us to not ignore it if you want your business to get found on Google. And it's something that I feel a lot of photographers either miss, or they don't know, or they don't know about, or they ignore. So for our listeners, why is it so important that we pay attention to SEO if you've got a business?
Well, okay, so SEO is probably the most important thing you can do, really, with anything that you do. More important than Instagram, more than important than any of the social media, because you don't actually own any of that content. And if they pull it offline at any time, you've lost everything. So the key is to get into your own websites. I'm a great advocate of, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way, because I've done it, but the likes of using Wix and Squarespace and Photo Shelter, and I've been on all of them for 2 years apiece. The problem is they say they can do SEO and Google rankings. It can't. The best way you can get in control of your business as a photographer is to create your online WordPress website. And I can corroborate this, because a little backstory, I had an agency. It was web-based agency with creative processes on top. I spoke to our hand coders. I used to own it, and the hand coders told me and showed me the processes of how to keyword and optimize. And as we said before, I got to page 1 of Google. It's dropped a little bit, but I was number 1, and I haven't touched that for 13, 14, 15 years. It's been there. I've never done anything. That's the power of SEO and backlinks. Backlinks are very important, but don't buy backlinks. Make sure they're off. What a backlink is, Wayne, you link to my website to a picture and you draw it into your blog or to this podcast website. that's classed as a backlink, and a quality backlink because of your social standing online. It gives Google the impression that because you're looking at it, oh, we like that, it's a little bit higher up the ranking. And it's a lot of backlinks. You can go to Fiverr or any people per hour and you can buy yourself 1,000 backlinks. It doesn't do anything, but SEO is very important. It takes time when you optimize your images with your alt tags and SEO on your website. Everything is SEO'd, and there's a lot of plugins that you can use within WordPress. So I don't get anything from WordPress. All the websites you can see, apart from my .co.uk you're looking at now, are WordPress.
Yep.
Because you're in control. Once you learn that process yourself, you can then start to sit and understand how to SEO your website, your images, your everything. And the quickest thing, this is a little tip, the quickest thing to get linked onto Google ranking is a blog post within WordPress.
Yeah.
So if you did a blog post in your blog on your WordPress website within a week, you'll see it pop up for your keywords. And that drives people. And it's just, I'm going to be putting something out. I'm not going to advertise it, but I'll be putting something out to help people based on my experience. And I can talk with a high level of knowledge about doing this because I've done it for 10, 12 years and proved it. All the websites that I create pop up on the website positioning page 1 or 2 within 6 months.
Nice. Yeah, see, I mean, I'm guilty of that. Mine suffers. I mean, I use SmugMug for my website host because I'm lazy.
I didn't want you to, don't take me wrong, I didn't mean to annihilate any of them.
Oh, no, not at all. I do know what you're saying technically.
Yeah.
But I use SmugMug now. Sadly, the downside for me, which does annoy me, sorry SmugMug, is that they don't have a blog feature in their website format. And I have to use an external blog page to link into my main SmugMug page. And we've asked for it for years and it's still not come about. And that annoys me a little bit, really. It's not a hard thing to put into the website system. And I just wish SmugMug would sort that out. There you go. Speaking honest and out loud.
It's nice of you to share that with us. It's true. I mean, I was only listening last week about the power of Instagram because I was looking at why my likes have dropped, and people could say, well, your pictures are shite compared to how they used to be, whatever. But I've known there's a lot of things because actually, that Facebook own Instagram, and Facebook is now marketing, and now they're doing the same with Instagram.
Yeah.
Now they're shutting down TikTok, and it's like, what's next? They don't want us to do anything. It's all about money, but they actually own your content and they own everything. So you've got to focus on what you have, your own lists, your own, like your Podlamania. That's great. Yeah. You've got access to people. You can talk to people. That's one thing I don't necessarily have, is a platform really to engage with. But once you're doing that, you're in control of everything you do. At the moment, everybody's relying on other people providing you with a service that they can withdraw or block you because they don't like your hashtag.
Yeah. And we know that for a fact since Facebook has merged Instagram's algorithms with itself. You're either one side of the coin or the other. It's quite extreme. Your likes have either gone up dramatically or they've dropped dramatically. And sadly, I feel personally Facebook's algorithms are killing Instagram. So
yeah, I mean, Facebook, when was the last time you got any traction on that?
I call it dead book, but there you go.
I tell you what, it's very powerful for advertising. So if you've got a product, let's say you're selling something associated with Podlamania. I mean, I've looked into this over Christmas period because I was looking at doing something for myself. These little infield notebooks, leather bound and stuff from China. But if you use Facebook for that and do a Facebook pixel, Google Pixel, Facebook Pixel, it tracks all the information, actually makes. It's when somebody says it's powerful advertising, I thought, shit, I really don't like it. It doesn't do anything. But when you look into it, something called Herbalo 101 I did, which is about drop shipping products and things like that. Oh, yeah. When you look into that and see the power of Facebook, you can see why it's caning it, because you can drive down to your town and you can sell to your town virtually your product.
Right, let's get off that horrible negative stuff of Facebook because it will destroy our soul. Now, we're coming near the end of the show, but a good piece of info for all our listeners is that I just want to share this, James. It's not a question really. is that James has some really lovely free educational content over on his blog page, and that's under your Silver Gum Type put my teeth in, Silver Gum Type Photography Academy, isn't it? So for people that want to just pick up some lovely, interesting tips and learn a bit about some various topics, pop over there. There's some great bits of info over there and education, which you kindly share for free. I just wanted to just promote that because I think
I'm going to develop that a little bit and put more, update it and put more stuff in. But if you're interested, there's a journal. Well, it probably won't go out till late on Friday, Saturday. I do a journal every week, which is reflecting on exactly what you've spoken about today, Wayne, which is some of the personal projects and things that I do. Beautiful, beautiful.
Now, James, if you didn't have to work commercially, what sort of images would you spend your time creating and shooting? I think we actually know the answer to this already, to be fair.
Or the alternative is to win the lottery.
Yeah. I mean, even if you were to win the lottery, would you still keep shooting?
I would stop all client work. You can tell I've had this conversation.
I think we all have.
If I won 100,000, no, it need more than that. Okay, so if I didn't have to work again, I would then focus on creating fine art pieces that are a one-off that can be sold. Which means that maybe once a month I'll bring together the dream team. I've signed off a style mood board, used the right model at the right price, and I would shoot that. And that's what I do, because I don't think, sometimes I sit there and think, I was just 58 last week.
Wow. Happy birthday, man.
I'm thinking, what would I do? So last night I was watching a program about, when the people disappear to Spain.
Yeah.
And they do a different life. I said, we really like the idea of moving abroad and doing something. And like James saying, well, let's go to Corfu. What are you going to do? Serve coffee. I said, I take pictures. I like to take pictures. Even my iPhone, I'm taking pictures. So the answer is, that's what I would do.
Nice, man. Nice. I don't blame you.
More fine art style, individual pieces, and maybe a bit more like Platt, a bit more experimental.
I think we'd all do a similar thing, wouldn't we?
Of course you would. Once you're a photographer, you can't stop.
Yeah, I think we'd all drop client work for sure. So before we round off the show, do you have any exciting projects you're working on at the moment that you can share with us?
Well, there's a few. I've probably forgotten there because I sent them through a few weeks ago. But okay, so what am I working on? I'm currently working on my fine art website. Also, I'm trying to develop my blog. I think one of the things I would really, really love to deliver, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, as a workshop, but more of a workshop experience with a collaboration. I've got this location in LA that's out in the desert. It's a white studio where Herbert shoots. And
nice.
I know there's a couple of photographers that have worked there, Miss Aniela and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
And I just want to create a calendar for photographers to come over, shoot 3 days their own stuff, and then give me 1 day where I've got this stylist from New York, and I'd love to be able to deliver that, but it's just logistically, I don't know how to make that happen right now or in the foreseeable future.
Not right now, but watch this space, folks.
Yeah, watch this space. There's a few other things that are bubbling and whatever, but I can't really think of anything else, to be honest.
But as always, as creatives, especially in these times, we've always got to innovate, haven't we? So, yeah.
You've got to move around a little bit, dodge and duck and dive and stuff, but I think, it's strange times, to be honest. I think just survival and creating some revenue to pay the bills is the essential thing, really. I
think that's a very true fact and statement to close off that last question, that it is survival at the moment, folks. Don't be too disheartened with what's going on. Just survival. That's the important thing. Okay, James, one last question, which we round off the show with every artist as well. And here is where we ask you to personally recommend 2 creatives from either the photographic or video world to come on to Podlamania as a guest for another interview, like yourself. And we ask you to get in touch with them and do an email intro so that we don't get arrested for stalking. And they can be any creative or, from the video or photographic world, and any level of creative, because we like to cater for all creatives that make up our industry. So, for example, it could be a lighting gaffer or a sound guy from the video world, or a color editor. Or from the photo world, it could be an assistant, or it could be an art director, or it could be a producer. It could be anything like that. So
I think you've caught me out.
You don't have to give the names now, but we.
No, I can think of a few people. I can't think off the top of my head.
Oh, that's fine.
At this stage, yeah, a few people will be quite interested. I think it's also about discovery, isn't it? I think it's all right talking amongst ourselves, but sometimes there's people out there that are trying to get a little foot up.
Yeah.
Trying to get a little bit of help. They're quite good. We've got to where we are, and, there's still a long way to go, or we've come a long way, but there's still people that just come out of university and things like that, and what hope have they got to be photographers and stuff? They're doing photographic degrees. How do they get? But yeah, I mean, I'd have to have a think about that if that was okay.
That would be cool. I mean, we have some guests that reel off a list on the show that they're very good friends with. Other people go, I won't commit to names at the moment because I've got to just check with them. That's absolutely fine. But have a think of that, and obviously you can drop that information over an email or do an email, do an e-intro as we call it.
I think the thing is, I'm not very good friends with anyone. That just answers it, doesn't it?
Just recommend me, mate. I'll come back on the show as myself.
Yeah, I recommend you and Jake. There you go.
Okay, James, that's the end of the episode. But before we go, let's just let our audience and our listeners know where can they find you. So all your websites and all your socials, please.
Okay, so my main website, which is a holding page, is jamesnader.com. That gives you an idea of the different things that I'm thinking about. jamesnader.co.uk is my personal portfolio, my photographic portfolio, more fashion-based. I've got Nader Fine Art, which I'm building at the moment, which is a Shopify store, which is going to start selling my fine art on my collector's postcards. Nice. And my little passion at the moment is my James Nader blog, which is jamesnader.com/blog. And that's entitled Silver Gum Type, which I will be taking off into its own domain at some point. That's really where I'm starting, like yourself, to try and create a voice for myself. And I'd really be happy if I get people to engage with me within that. That'd be great. Sign up and join in. And Instagram at James Nader. The one thing I do have is another Instagram called at @silvergumtype. That is my personal stuff. So yeah, that's it really. That's the sort of things. I've got various other things. There's my nadermedia.com, which is my production site, which is completely different work.
Yeah,
a bit more video based. And that's essentially me.
That's you. And obviously you've got James Nader Photography on Facebook. You got James Nader Twitter. And of course we've got your James Nader on YouTube, which will have some of your...
Oh yeah, YouTube, yeah. Don't take the mickey out of me on YouTube, because I am trying. Not like you guys. The problem is you've got to put so much stuff out a week, and because I'm doing others, I haven't got that time. So I'm having a go. So don't take the mickey out of me. Just try and work with me.
Content creation while you're full time in a job is hard to do. Content creation.
It's hard, yeah.
It is hard.
Hats off to you creating this Podlamania. You've done really well.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you.
It's amazing how many people are doing podcasts, which I thought had died a death, but now it's becoming a way of talking and getting out there, isn't it, really? Damn
right, yeah. And to our listeners that are listening to this, we just want to apologise because we have had a couple of show interruptions over the past couple of months with the lockdown and things, and we have missed a couple of episodes on our bi-weekly launch that we normally do, and we're trying to get that back on track, but we have had some issues and hurdles that have prevented that from happening. So we do apologise, but don't stop listening to us because we are getting back on track, so don't worry about that. But there we go, James. Thank you for that. I just want to tell all our listeners, if you would like to help support us to produce and record even more great interviews with some of the world's greatest creative talents, your support and donations are very much appreciated. And for those that don't know, you can find our donate button on our website at podlamania.com/donate. Even $1 helps to keep the show running, so we appreciate that. And remember, if you like this episode and you don't want to miss out on new episodes, then please make sure you subscribe to us on your chosen podcast player, or you can subscribe to us, the podcast at podlamania.com/subscribe. And remember, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes Store, Stitcher, Spotify, Podbean, and podlamania.com, as well as about 35 other different podcast players where it farms out from. But remember, please give us a like and don't forget to comment, especially on Apple Podcasts, because it does help in our rankings. So thank you very much for that. And James, lastly, thanks for joining us, my friend. It's been awesome talking to you and getting a small snippet of your your life as a photographer in the creative world.
Thanks for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It was not as hard as I thought it was going to be.
I did tell you it'd be quite relaxed.
Probably when I hear it back, I think, oh my God, what have I said? But it's nice to suddenly get a voice to what I do, to try to just be ordinary,
No, it's been nice to finally get this down, man. It's been really, really good. Yeah. I'm sure we'll do more in the future as well when you have some interesting projects.
Do some more. I'd love to meet up with you guys and let's see if there's something we can maybe do together or talk about or film or I don't know, whatever it is. Just keep me posted.
Certainly. We'll make something happen. That word collab sounds like fun, and we've definitely got to have that beer time. I think, we've missed out on that in past times, have that beer.
And thanks to all the people that have maybe just listened to me talk.
That's cool, man. We'll just record it. We'll just record the conversation. It'd be cool. Yeah. Right, everybody. Thank you for listening to this episode, and we look forward to catching you all in the next one. So from us, that's a big goodbye, and we'll see you in episode 31. Thank you, James.
Thank you very much.